This week on Engage the Sage.
Hi everyone, I'm Don Saucier. Welcome to this week's episode of Engage the Sage. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the possibility of offering your students a student hours mission. First of all, I want to define what student hours are. We used to, and some of us still do, call these office hours. These are a time where students can come by, a pre-specified time, to ask you questions, to talk about the class in your office. The issue that I have and that my students have with the term office hours is that they don't know what it means. Office hours, I've actually had some students tell me, is the time they think I'm in my office doing my research, and that's my do not disturb time. When in actuality, it's exactly the opposite. I think, and I was not smart enough to think of this on my own, I've also read that student hours is a much more descriptive term that lets students know this is time for them. This is time that you're dedicated to them, to their questions, and to promoting their understanding. Now, typically, instructors are going to offer maybe 2, 3, 4 student hours a week that they'll be in the office and basically on call for students to come in with questions and confusions about their class. I love when students come to my office. I love teaching. I love my class content. I love the assignments that I've put out there. So if a student come by with their questions, their confusions, or just to chat about the stuff that we're learning, I absolutely love that. But unfortunately, not a lot of students come by. I think one of the reasons that students don't come by is they don't know what student hours are really for, and they don't recognize their value. So what I do in some of my classes is I offer a student hours mission to help them understand what student hours are for and why they're valuable. And I also love the time that I have with my students when they complete this mission. One of the classes that I teach is a Psychology of Prejudice class as part of our first year experience program. It's actually a learning community class that is devoted to first year, first time college students to help them acclimate to college and to support their success. In the curriculum for that class, I do a lot of things that's related to the theoretical understanding of prejudice because that's the content that class is about. But I also have dedicated a bunch of the content and the assignments to helping my students learn how to college. And one of the things that I offer in that class is this student hours mission. By the way, in this class and in many of my other classes, I don't call them assignments, I call them missions because this is something I want them to be invested and excited to accomplish. So there's a number of steps to completing the student hours mission, and I give them several weeks to kind of complete this. But the first step is I'm going to tell them, you're going to send me a professional email to set up an appointment to meet in my office. And I actually have a video that helps them learn how to send this email. But I want them to learn how to email instructors and ask to meet. I then ask that they're going to prepare a list of content that we're going to talk about in that meeting. This might be questions they have, these might be comments that they have to make, maybe experiences they want to share. And I let them know this could be related specifically to the class, but it also can be related more broadly to succeeding at our university. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure that when they meet with me, they're going to decide what it is that we talk about. Now, spoiler alert, at the end, I'm going to check in on them and ask how things are going. I'm going to ask how their roommates going, how their classes are, those kind of things. So I have my own agenda for the meeting. But I want them to come in with a pre-prepared agenda so that they can guide at least the initial part of our conversation. Then they come and we meet. And typically I tell them to plan for about 15 minutes. I've had these meetings sometimes go over an hour. It's kind of an awesome situation where students come in, they find out maybe this isn't as scary as they thought it would be. They start to see the value of maybe having some time with me talking about my classes and about college life. And I love these meetings. The last thing they do is they prepare a reflection of their experience in the meeting. And I really love reading these because they'll talk about what they prepared, they'll talk about the questions and content and agenda that they prepared, they'll talk about the experience of having to come in and meet with me and how scary that initially was, but how they learned that really wasn't all that scary. And then they provide recommendations to future students for how to approach student hours in this class or any other class that they're taking. I find the student hours mission incredibly valuable because number one, I love having this one-on-one time with my students. It lets me get to know my students in ways that I often can't, especially if I'm teaching very large classes. One of my classes has about 200 students in it. This is a smaller class, but it gives me one-on-one time to connect to my students better. And this helps me creating an active learning environment and a supportive learning environment in the class after having had these meetings. It's also a wonderful way, with kind of checking in on them, to connect some of my students with resources. Some of my students I'm going to connect with our Student Access Center. Some of my students I'm going to connect with our Office of Student Life. Some of my students I connect with our Counseling Services Center. But it gives me an opportunity to help my students in a way that I can't personally, but to let them know that we have a campus that has those resources to help them. These meetings allow me to demonstrate to my students that I care about their learning and their success, and I care about them as people. I think student hours are amazing. And I think sometimes students don't know how amazing they are. And I think the student hours mission is something you may want to consider using in some of your classes to help your students learn the value of student hours. And I think what you'll find is that you'll enjoy your student hours too. In the comments below, I'd love to hear about your experiences with student hours, and I would also love to hear anything that you do to increase your students' use of your students' hours. Thank you for watching this episode of Engage the Sage. Please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, share us on social media, and we'll see you next time on Engage the Sage.